It's time to get inside the Giants Huddle.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
On Giants.com.
I like it, I like it.
And the Giants mobile app.
Boom, give me some juice.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's roll.
Welcome to the Giants Huddle Podcast, presented by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. John Schmeelk with you. Thank you so much for being with us. A crowded Friday show coming your way as usual. I'll be talking to Giants tight end Daniel Bellinger. Lance Medow has a chance to talk Cowboys with Calvin Watkins, the beat reporter for the Dallas Morning News. And as always, our very own Bob Papa will have a chance to talk with the head coach of the Giants, Brian Daboll. First, we'll lead off with my interview with Daniel Bellinger. Now we're joined by Giants tight end Daniel Bellinger. Daniel, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Getting ready for Dallas.
Well, we just got off the practice field on Thursday. How has practice been this week getting ready for the game?
It's been good. You know, we came out with a lot of energy. We prepare very well. I think so. We just got to take that and take it to the field on Sunday.
So how has the locker room processed what happened with Daniel last week, which obviously impacts the whole team?
Right. You know, it's a blow to the team. You know, he's obviously a great guy, great leader in our locker room. So when something like that happens, you know, you obviously feel for the guy. Just came back from the neck injury, and it's just tough. You know, it's tough for him. It's tough for us, and all we can do is, you know, take it day by day and, you know, take the next step, be there for the guy. But like I said, just keep getting ready and take the next step for Dallas. What's
been the message from Dabes and the veteran team captains about how you guys now continue to carry on? I mean, you still have 8 games left in the year.
Right. Just stick together. You know, stick together. Make sure that, you know, we're a resilient team. You know, I think so. Just staying together, taking those steps, like I said, and at the end of the day, we just gotta produce better when it's time.
Has there been a rally around Tommy type of effect here? Obviously, he's got the odds stacked against him. Undrafted free agent, all that stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely he's got some swag to him, you know, and that swag, you know, brings it to the team and brings the energy. You know, like I said, I feel like we've had a lot of energy this last week, and you know, it starts with him. You're
not the first person to, you know, kind of talk about him with a certain amount of charisma, right? What is it about him that kind of gives him that charisma and natural leadership ability?
Man, he's got that Jersey swag, man.
The gold chain, the whole nine
exactly.
yards.
It's just who he is. You know, it's the Jersey DeVito swag that we like.
How has he been in practice trying to pick everything up? And now, you know, it's one thing to run scout team and be the backup. It's another to be the guy. How has he been this week as the guy?
Yeah, it's tough for anybody. You know, you throw anybody in there. It's especially with our offense and the different things that we do. It's like it could be definitely overwhelming for anybody. But you know, DeVito's done a great job. You know, he was here all day on our day off. You know, getting everything down, and was with Dabes and Calf, and I think he's doing a great job.
How can you guys help him? You talk about the offense, how it's complex, right? You do things based on what the defense shows you and things of that nature. How can you guys, as teammates on the field with him, help him to make some of that stuff a little bit easier for him so not so much is on his shoulders?
Right. Yeah, you get in the game and everything's flying a million miles a second. And so really it's just, you know, slowing things down. And I think the biggest thing for us is going to be communication, you know, starting with the O-line, communicating, and then everybody making sure we're on the same page, which will help him out immensely.
What is it about what you've seen from him throughout the spring, summer, and now in practice this week that gives you confidence that you guys can still be a good, successful offense that scores points with Tommy as your quarterback?
Yeah, he has no fear. You know, I think that he goes out there and, you know, like I said, with the swag, he just goes out and plays. And we love that about him. I love that about him, that he just goes out and plays and he's not worried about, you know, exactly what everything is going on. You know, he just gets in and does the job that he needs to do.
Would you rather have that guy that maybe you have to pull back a little bit rather than the guy you have to maybe push forward a little bit? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, you want the guy that you want to have to pull him back a little bit instead of like, all right, we got to push you. So I think he's the guy that you got to pull back a little bit because, you know, he's going to go out there with some good energy.
Now, unfortunately, your team this year on offense has dealt with, I mean, the amount of injuries has been ridiculous, from your quarterback, your running back, your starting tackles, your starting center, tight end. Wide receiver has really been the one position where I think you haven't had a lot of injuries yet. How has that hindered your guys' ability to find a consistent rhythm that you can carry, not even from like game to game, but quarter to quarter in some of these games?
Yeah, it's tough. You know, it's tough when injuries happen, and, you know, of course, it's part of the game. You know, I think we see it as, you know, we can't make an excuse for it. You know, every team has injuries, and every team goes through ups and downs, and, you know, it's part of the game, and it's probably the worst part of the game. And, you know, it's definitely tough trying to have consistency and being like, especially, you know, like you said, the O-line, it's like one guy comes in, one guy goes out. It's like, what we need to do is, you know, stay on top of the things, that the small details, like the communication and everything like that. And it can be tough, but we can't make an excuse. You know, we just have to gel together, next man up mentality, and go out and execute.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the mechanics of it. In some ways, I know this is probably a little too strong, but in some ways, you have to start from scratch almost from week to week now when you have different guys in different spots, learning the communication and stuff like that, where it's harder to build from week to week. It's more kind of, all right, 2 steps forward. Oh, now we got to go a step and a half back.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, it's easy to say, like, okay, this guy might not know this or might not know that, but that's where it comes down to individually, where we have to be locked into every detail. And it's, like I said, again, it's the communication aspect of it. If a guy's kind of unsure because, he hasn't been in there or seen the looks a lot, that's where you communicate with him and be like, all right, this is what we got to do on this play, this is what we got to do on that play. So it starts with communication and, next man up mentality, everybody being ready.
You would like, though, by week 9, you would think that's something that's instinctual, and it's not something you have to really talk about on every play, though, right?
Right. It's ups and downs. It's tough, but something that every team has to work through.
Sure, and your position too. Now Darren Waller's on injured reserve. How has it been kind of getting back? I think last week I looked it up. You were back over 80% of the snaps again. How has it been like kind of sliding back into that tight end 1 role?
Yeah, I feel like I was ready. Just stay on my toes and stay ready no matter what, because anybody can go down at any time. And Darren's a great leader, so he did a good job of making sure not just myself but the other guys in the room are ready in case anything happened. And I think that's the guy he is just learning from him. And if in case something did happen, unfortunately it did, just being ready.
Now, obviously that's a role you played last year, so the responsibility is nothing new. When you guys leaned into more 12 personnel this year, right, with you and Darren both on the field at the same time, the things they were asking you to do as tight end too, were they similar to what you were being asked to do last year? You were just in a different spot. Was it a different role? Just talk to me a little bit about how it was a little bit different being the guy with Darren rather than like the number 1 guy on your own.
Yeah, it's definitely a little different. Darren brings a dynamic to the offense that is just special. He's a special player and he can do a lot of different things with because of how talented he is. And, with him on the field, it opens up, it brings more attention to him and stuff like that. So I would say it's a little different for myself being able to, do what I need to do with him on the field versus when he's not on the field. But at the same time, it's something that I have to be ready for and other guys have to be ready for in case something happens, and like unfortunately it did. But it is a little different, and it's just being ready to change things up on the fly when something happens.
Now, I'm not even going to ask you, do you like leaning into the dirty work? Because that was basically your college career, was doing the dirty work. So have you found that you got back to the basis of what you did in college? You're just doing a lot of blocking in the run game and stuff like that while Darren was on the field? Right.
I mean, it's those are the things that help us win. So it's like I take pride in it, and it's some guys can get upset, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, but to me that's not important. The important part is the job's got to get done, whether it's the dirty work or the star work, you're in the spotlight, whatever it is, it's getting the job done to help us win. And so if it means doing the dirty work, then I enjoy doing it because someone's got to do it, right? So
let me ask you about chipping. I feel like there's an art to the chip that people don't talk about, because sometimes either when a running back chips or a tight end chips, sometimes you kind of get in the way of the offensive tackle and it actually hurts them more than it helps. Mm-hmm. So how has it been practicing that part of the game, and having a different tackle next to you a lot of the time probably doesn't help either? Talk to me about the art of the chip and how you can do it effectively where it actually does help your tackle.
Right. I think as a tight end group, we've grown a lot. Like last year, it was something that was probably one of our weakest points last year. And this year, I think Coach Bish and the tight ends did a great job of taking a step forward, because now it's like we're more aggressive on the chips, and we have a new system where it's like we communicate what we're going to do, so the tackles know exactly what we're going to do, no matter who's in there. And so I think we took a great step forward, and there is an art to it. It's like they like to play their games, and especially the elite pass rushers, they know they're going to get chipped. So it's like, how do you chip a guy who knows he's going to get chipped, and taking the right approach to it and being patient with it. And it's something that we've grown a lot with.
And then your tackle also know, right? Are you going to force him in, or are you going to push him out? And those are things that you have to communicate on too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, communication with them is paramount.
Run game, we know it's going to be really important. It always is with Saquon Barkley, obviously. With an undrafted rookie quarterback, it becomes even more important. Do you feel like your team's hitting your stride a little bit in your run blocking? Because I feel like Saquon, if you didn't get behind by 20 at the half in that game against the Raiders, I feel like he could have went for $150 in that game. Do you feel like the run blocking is kind of coming together a little bit?
Absolutely. Saquon's a heck of a back. He's one of the best in the league, and finally we're having some more consistency on the O-line, which is a big part of it. But yeah, we're taking strides in it. It's something that it's something that all of us need to work on together, because if one guy's not doing his job right and everybody else is, it could destroy the whole play. So I think we're finally meshing, and we're gelling together, and we're taking the right step in the run game.
For you personally, where do you think you've made the most growth from year 1 to year 2 as an NFL player?
Number one thing is communication. It's definitely been a struggle with guys coming in and out. And, last year I felt like I was more quiet trying to figure things out. And this year it's like, okay, I understand the look. Now I can communicate it. Like you said, with the chips, the communication, communicating with the quarterback, communicating all around is something that I've improved and it's helped me improve my game.
All right, let's talk about the opponent very quickly. Why is this Dallas defense so good? As from 20,000-foot view, you watch them on tape. Why do they give teams so many problems?
Yeah, they're relentless. Their front is their front. They got guys up there with DeMarcus Lawrence and Michael Parsons. These guys are great players with great talent, and they play well. So we just have to understand who we're going against and take the best foot forward that we can.
And there's like 8 of them. Like, it isn't just the 4 guys, right? So you talk about identifying them. How much do you have to personalize? Might be strong, but customize your approach depending on which guys are actually on the field.
Yeah, no, it's they switch guys in and out, and they do a lot of games and stuff like that. So it's really just locking into the details of our work and focusing on what we can do to control them. And it's at the same time it's taking it step by step. Like right now, practicing and understanding who they are, because this is a team in our division. It's a team we played previous in the year, and we got to understand what they're doing. And I think we have a good game plan this week. How
much can you take out of that first game? It feels like it was basically a half a season ago, and obviously things went sideways quick. So how much can you guys take out of that game to help you this week?
A lot. Seeing what they want to do. Obviously they're going to come in and say, okay, it worked last game. Let's see what we can do to make it work this game. And we got to be prepared for that. We got to be prepared for things that we weren't the first game and make sure we correct it this game.
They're twist and stunts. They do that more than pretty much any other team in the league. How much of that is understanding how they're set up in formation pre-snap to figure out what they're going to try to do, anticipating, and how much is just reacting properly?
Right. All communication, all communication up front, starts with the center. We all echo the call and making sure that we're all on the same page, because if we're all wrong, then, we'll ride together. But if we're all right, we're all right. You know what I mean? So they call it, we haul it, we run it, and we execute. How
much is there communication post-snap? Or is that point, or once the ball is snapped, is it kind of now you have to just kind of go with what you know?
No, I mean, you got to react, but there's definitely good communication post-snap. It's like twist, bump, making sure that
if you're going to switch it, how are you going to handle those, right? Things like that.
Exactly. So the post and pre-snap communication is very important.
What makes Michael Parsons?
Elite athlete. He's hard to guard wherever he is. They move him around a lot, and he'll be anywhere. And he's good enough to do that, and he's a smart, just very athletic player.
Is that the first thing you do out of the snap? Figure out where 11 is?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. You got to identify guys like him and DeMarcus Lawrence and those guys, and understand what they bring to the table and be ready for it.
Final question: they're good at taking the ball away. DeRon Bland has 3 pick sixes. How does a defense get good at taking the ball away, and what do they do as a defense that maybe lends more offenses to making mistakes that gives them those opportunities?
I think it starts up front. We talk about their front four and stuff and how they bring the pressure. But I think it's just, as an offense, we got to make the right decision and ball security. So, just making the right decisions with the ball, and then, make sure the ball's locked up tight.
How much does Dan Quinn try to disguise what he's doing coverage-wise in the back end, to supplement that pass rush?
He does it pretty well. They disguise it well with the safeties. But at the end of the day, we know what they're trying to do up front. So we got to be ready for it, and we got to be able to execute.
And they're going to play a lot of man, right? So you guys are going to get your chances to win one-on-one at some point during the game, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We got to be there for DeVito. We got to be ready for him.
Daniel, best of luck, man. Thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
That's Giants tight end Daniel Bellinger. The Giants Huddle podcast is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Giants. From game day to every day, Citizens is made ready for Giants fans with insights, guidance, and solutions. Learn more at citizensbank.com. Now let's take a closer look at the Giants' opponent this week. Lance Medow talks with Calvin Watkins, who covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News.
The Giants and Cowboys wrap up their season series this Sunday at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. Cowboys won the first meeting 40-0 in Week 1 at MetLife Stadium, and this time around it'll be Tommy DeVito need to solve that Dallas defense. To help break down the Cowboys, what to expect from their side of things, We're now joined by a man who covers the team for the Dallas Morning News, none other than Calvin Watkins. Calvin, you got Lance Medow here on Giants.com. Greatly appreciate the time. Hope all is well. How's everything on your end?
Things are going good. You been all right?
I've been great, and I'm looking forward to another matchup within this rivalry, though Giants dealing with far more issues in comparison to the Dallas Cowboys, Calvin, it's fair to say. But let's start with Dallas from a big picture perspective, because I know a big part of the conversation after that Week 5 loss to the Niners was, well, maybe there's a bit of a separation between San Francisco and Dallas and the rest of the NFC pack. Now they're coming off a game against the Eagles, which, as you can attest to, went right down to the wire. So even though they lost, how much was that a statement last week, or a bit more of an encouraging sign that maybe the gap is not as big as that Niners game earlier this season indicated?
I just think they don't match up well with San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? It's like a boxing match. Styles make fights. Sure. So that game was they got blown out in San Francisco. So, and yeah, San Francisco, I think, lost 3 in a row since that game. Yeah. You know, so maybe San Francisco took that game a little bit differently in comparison to Dallas. But the Cowboys have been knocked out of the playoffs the last 2 years by the 49ers. They've lost the last 3 games. So, like I said, styles make fights. The Eagles game is a division opponent, you know, as Mike McCarthy says, a common opponent. So you know each other really well. That game was close. But in reality, if you watch that game from start to finish, it wasn't as close as you thought, because the Eagles had 14 points in the third quarter. It was a 2-score game. Then the Cowboys kind of rallied, and the Eagles – They didn't run the clock where they were supposed to, so Dallas got back in the game. So yes, at the end it was close. But as DeMarcus Lawrence said going into that game, this was a game for us to make a statement, and they did not. So against 2 title contenders, the 49ers and the Eagles, you lost. Doesn't matter how you lost, a loss is a loss. So there you have it. So you could say maybe the Cowboys are the 3rd or the 4th best team in the conference. What does that get you? We'll find out in January.
It's a result-oriented business. There's only so many brownie points that can be given out in the National Football League. Speaking of the separation of statistics, interestingly, Cowboys at home this season, 3-0, averaging 37 points per game. On the road, Calvin, 2-3, 22 points per game. Now, as you mentioned, styles make fights. I would also argue the caliber of the competition is also indicative, right, of records and numbers. So when you look at that disparity, because it is a bit noticeable, how much is that a byproduct of, well, at home, they played the Jets and the Patriots, and on the road, they played the Niners and the Chargers and the Eagles, and maybe there's not so much to read into that, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
You can say that. I mean, you look at the first meeting between the Giants and the Cowboys, it was a blowout, and that was on the road, you know, and it was in the rain, it was all those kinds of things. And yeah, the Jets, they didn't have Aaron Rodgers, so the Jets were going through something there. New England kind of surprised me a little bit, but, you know, they don't have the quarterback play. I will say in the 3 home games, the Jets didn't have Aaron Rodgers. The Pats had Mac Jones, who played terribly in that game. And then Matthew Stafford for the Rams, he got knocked out of that game with a thumb injury. So they had some inferior quarterbacks, and they had a great quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and they knocked him out the game. So that, to me, that was kind of like the difference in those home games. On the road, and like we said, the 49ers just better than them. You know, they got upset in Arizona. They had a pretty competitive game against the Eagles. So, but the main thing about being at home, Mike McCarthy talks about this all the time. Handle your business at home, and everything else will fall into place. That's exactly what they're doing.
And they certainly have handled their business against the Giants in recent and far history. The numbers jump off the page for not very good reason for Big Blue. But I want to focus on quarterback play for the Cowboys here. You were talking about the quarterbacks they've gone up against. Dak Prescott, 7 touchdown passes over the last 2 games. They've really aired it out since coming off of the bye. What's been the difference, Calvin, in comparison to earlier in the season? Not that they haven't been playing good offense, but we certainly have not seen the numbers through the air as much as we're seeing an emphasis now.
No, I think he's averaging like 70% completion percentage in the league. It might have been 3rd in the league, and he's been playing really well. But the key is, after that 49ers game, CeeDee Lamb said, we need to talk. And he talked to Dak Prescott. He talked to Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator. He talked to Robert Prince, the receivers coach. Obviously, he talked to Mike McCarthy, the head coach. He's like, give me the ball. I mean, I'm like your number 1 receiver, and you're treating me like I'm just a guy. And ever since that that game, the 49er game, CD's got over 400 yards receiving yards. And he has set career highs in receiving yardage 2 of the last 3 weeks. So Dak getting the ball to CeeDee Lamb, tight end Jake Ferguson has helped tremendously. Dak has played pretty good for the whole season, for the exception of the Arizona game, where I thought he wasn't as good as he should have been. In the 49er game, in a big game like that, he should have stepped up. Brock Purdy outplayed him, but that's over with. But over the last couple of weeks, Dak's been outstanding. And the key to me is because he's focusing on getting CeeDee Lamb the ball. Jake Ferguson is growing up. He's a second-year kid from out of Wisconsin. He's maturing a lot more. So, and the running game has not been what they thought it was going to be. So everything's been about passing, and Dak has embraced that, and he's playing really well. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league the last month or so.
I want to focus more on CD because I think we've even seen this with Devontae Adams and the Raiders, who the Giants actually just played. And he also was complaining about wanting the ball. And the numbers didn't necessarily skyrocket, Calvin, in the last game. They didn't need to. But as you well know from covering the NFL, it's one thing to say, okay, you want to get a guy more involved. Then you force feed the ball, and it actually hurts you more so than it helps you. But I look at CD Lamb's numbers, and you were alluding to this, 37 targets, 30 receptions in the last 3 games. So it's not, to me, Calvin, that they've been getting him the ball. It's the fact that it's been efficient in terms of the connection between Dak and him. So what has been the difference there? Because CD can want the ball all he wants, but that doesn't mean Dak should be hitting the home run every single play.
I think one of the keys is they're moving him all over the field. He's making a lot of his biggest plays in the slot. CD said, I'm not a slot receiver. And that's fine. You're not a slot receiver, but you're playing all 3 receiver spots, and they got him in motion more. I think the Cowboys are using motion a lot more this year than they were last year. That's also been helpful. McCarthy wants Dak to get rid of the ball. They call it 2.3, above the 2.3. Get rid of the ball in 2.3 seconds. If the pocket breaks down, get your behind out of the pocket and find somebody. The scramble drills, those kinds of things. You know that. And CD and Dak have been in a great, they're on the same length in terms of knowing what to do when the pocket breaks down. Dak's using his legs a whole lot more, getting out of the pocket. It's not so much we're going to run bootlegs. It's, oh, you know what? Someone's in my face. Let me get out of here. CD recognizes it down the field. He gets to an open spot. They get a connection. So a lot of those things have been helpful for the Cowboys offense the last month or so.
On the topic of targets, I know a big theme this week at Mike McCarthy's press conferences from the members of the Dallas media, including yourself, has been the focus on Brandon Cooks, Calvin. And you're smiling and chuckling because you know what I'm talking about. And Mike came out and had that line, well, I don't get invested in fantasy football, so stop asking me about why Brandon Cooks has not necessarily had overwhelming targets. But in fairness, 29 targets through 7 games. I think most people, whether they're invested in the Cowboys or not, would say, okay, they went out, they acquired him. He's probably going to play a prevalent role within the offense. It's not a stretch to say that. So 2-parter for you. 1, why has he not been as involved that you can answer as opposed to McCarthy? And number 2, do you feel as if he's doing other things that don't necessarily show up in the box score, even though he's not getting the ball that much?
Well, I'm going to answer the second part first. I would say he's doing some things. He might be doing some clear outs to open up for CD. He's blocking down the field, those kinds of things. He's not causing he's not being a disruptive force in the meeting room. So he's doing all the things. He's a pro, and that's what you do. So yes, he's doing other things. One of the things we saw in training camp was vertical routes. He's going to take the top off the defense. We have not seen that this season as the games mean something. Defenses are keeping 2 safeties deep or 1 safety to shade it to a CD, and Brandon Cooks is open. He's not getting the ball because CD, I'm not even going to say complain, because CD said, hey, get me involved. They're getting CD more involved, and that means someone else is not getting touches, and that's Brandon Cooks. One of the things that Brandon Cooks does so well is he does vertical routes well, but they also got to get him on some slants, get him in situations where you can get people in space, you can use that speed and elusiveness to make plays in the passing game. And that's something they're not doing enough of. And that's on McCarthy, that's on Schottenheimer, that's on Brandon Cooks. It's a combination of things. As you know, it's all a puzzle, So they've solved the CeeDee Lamb puzzle of getting him the ball. Now they got to get Brandon Cooks the ball. Another reason why he's not getting the ball is Jake Ferguson, the tight end. He had a career day last week against Philadelphia. So he's taking some targets away. There was a pass to Cooks in that Eagles game. It was along the sidelines. It was a high throw. He was open. Get him the ball. There was a touchdown throw to a rookie tight end, Luke Schoonemaker, that was wiped out because his knee was down before he got in the end zone. Brandon Cooks was open on the backside, and Dak just missed him. So Cooks is getting open. He's just not getting the ball that he needs. It's not fantasy football, but there's a reason why you traded 2 draft picks to get Brandon Cooks, to utilize him, and he's not being utilized enough.
No, and that's a fair point, especially him getting open in certain throws, which don't necessarily show up in the box score. That's why I wanted to at least delve into that. As we're talking with Calvin Watkins, he covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, and you said the running game just has not been what perhaps we've been exposed to in previous years. And they did move on from Ezekiel Elliott, but Tony Pollard has proven to be a jack-of-all-trades running back, and they have some young guys. What would you pin your point-wise on that as to why it hasn't been effective, Calvin? Is it a product of the individual personnel, the offensive line, or just the fact that right now they're emphasizing more of the aerial attack?
I think they've been emphasizing the aerial attack, and some of their games, as McCarthy said, have been unbalanced. That first Giants game is 40-0. So you just, in that fourth quarter, if we look at that tape, we go, oh my gosh, they're just running plays out there. So Arizona, they were playing catch up, so you had to throw the ball over the field. New England was a blowout, so they're just running plays. So when you look at the running game, it has not been good. The offensive line is the first place you start. It has not been as good as it has been in the past. Terrence Steele, the starting right tackle, had an abysmal day against the Eagles. But in the running game, they've not been able to run behind Zach Martin. He's all pro right guard. Tony Pollard is the lead dog. And there's a lot of pressure when you become the lead dog. You got to pass protect, and Tony does a great job with that. You're on the field a lot more, and plus Pollard, as you know, is coming off that fractured leg. He suffered in a 49er playoff game last year. And Mike McCarthy was talking about this on Thursday. It takes a year for a guy to really fully recover from a severe leg injury like that. So maybe next year you'll see Tony Pollard with the speed that we're accustomed to seeing from him. But here's the other thing. The Cowboys don't have a big back. That was the thing about Zeke. Ezekiel Elliott was a big guy, thick guy. Right. He can get those 2 or 3 yards that you need. Pollard's not a big, thick guy like Zeke. So, some of those plays you're not going to get from Pollard. You got to get him off the edge a little bit. And this is where you need your offensive line to say, we have a smaller back there. We got to get a push. We got to show why we're in the weight room every day, and we got to get a push, and we got to get Tony those 2 or 3 yards that we need on those short down and distance situations. So it's a combination of things. I think the Cowboys might be tinkering with their offensive line, blocking schemes a little bit. There might be a change going into this game against the Giants possibly, so maybe that might help.
On the topic of changing and shifting personnel, I want to flip the script to the defensive side of the ball. Since the Cowboys met the Giants last in week 1, Dallas lost Leighton Vander Esch to injured reserve at linebacker and Trayvon Diggs, one of their top corners. And Calvin, you've been covering the Cowboys long enough. I'll even bring Sean Lee into the conversation, so I'm going to go a bit old school on you. When they have lost their middle linebacker, the key, the heart and soul, it's almost as if the defense is night and day compared to when those two guys were on the field. So I guess what I'm getting at is, and we've seen the scoring defense and the red zone defense have dipped over the last few weeks. What has been the biggest change in your mind with Vander Esch not being on the field as well as Trayvon Diggs? I'll add him in as well.
Well, when they lost Trayvon Diggs, they had a kid named Deron Bland who's been outstanding. He led the team with 5 interceptions last year. He's got 3 pick sixes already this year. He's been fantastic. He's a mid-round pick.
Including one against the Giants, by the way, in week 1.
That's right, yeah. And the special teams helped them. And also, too, they had a blocked, field goal in that ball game. So, but Deron Bland has been outstanding, and he's stepped up for them and replaced. He's not Trayvon Diggs, but he's more than serviceable in replacing Diggs, and they've been good. And on the other side, we don't talk about him enough, is Stephon Gilmore. He's had a pretty nice season, pretty good season. Teams don't throw it to his side, but when they do, it's usually incomplete. So he's quality had a pretty good season. when it comes to not having Van Der Esch, they've replaced him with two young guys. Damone Clark from LSU was a draft pick the previous year. As you know, he had surgery on his neck. And that delay, that he fell really into the middle rounds. He's like a first or second round pick, if not for that surgery. And he's played really well in Van Der Esch's spot. Marquise Bell is another kid that they found from Florida A&M, undrafted kid. He's like those tweeners that Dan Quinn likes to use. They're safeties, but we're going to put him at linebacker. Why? Because they're tall, they have long wingspans, they can cover running backs, they can cover tight ends, and they're physical. So Bell and Clark have really replaced Van Der Esch in the middle of the field. And plus, you got this other guy named Micah Parsons running around. So, there's so much you have to worry about the Cowboys defense. But Bell and Clark have played really well in the middle. And Deron Bland has obviously replaced Trayvon Diggs. Now, he's not at that level where Trayvon Diggs is. But as I said, he's more than serviceable at corner.
Yeah, it reminds me of Dan Quinn having the DeMonte Kazees and the Keanu Neals of the world, those tweeners, Calvin,
Atlanta.
that you're referring to. Yeah, they seem to flourish within this scheme. Speaking of Dan Quinn's approach, Tommy DeVito now is under center. We saw what the Cowboys defense did when Daniel Jones was steering the offense. It wasn't pretty. They had 7 sacks. They completely dominated in the trenches. What do you think the approach, Calvin, is going to be for Dan Quinn this week in terms of his level of aggressiveness, knowing that it's his first career start and he clearly is an undrafted rookie who has very limited experience?
One of the things that Dan Quinn talked about is even though he's a rookie, he's playing in the same system. So and they got Saquon Barkley, who's been pretty good, I guess. So they're going to play the system. I don't think Dan's going to. The Cowboys blitz a lot. Okay, let's just be honest. They blitz a lot anyway. And Michael Parsons, I think he's third in the NFL in pass rush win rate at 34%. So he's going to get home. I don't think the Cowboys will blitz more than they have been in the past because they got a rookie quarterback. But one of the things I think they will do is in the secondary, they're going to disguise some coverages. They're going to make it harder for DeVito to kind of figure out what's going on. And if he's taking some time to figure out what are they doing back there, Michael Parsons is going to get after him. Dorrance Armstrong is going to get after him. DeMarcus Lawrence is going to get after him. So those are the things that you will see more so than blitzing because the Cowboys are confident in their blitz attack already under normal circumstances.
And the twists and the stunts that are big staples of
that
defense.
A lot of stunts too. Yep.
Yeah, and the Giants had problems with that in week 1. So I'm with you there, Calvin. I think that's going to be a facet that will come into play this time around. Before I let you go, I want to bring special teams into the equation. When these teams last met, Cowboys were turning to a rookie kicker who has put on quite the show. I mean, NFL record here, 19 straight field goals to begin a career that have been successful for Brandon Aubrey. You've watched him going back to training camp, Calvin, and we also, not to pour salt into the wounds of what the Cowboys had to deal with Brett Maher's struggles last postseason, but how much of a pleasant surprise has this been? I mean, Aubrey, a soccer background, they take a flyer on a young guy, and all of a sudden he's been Mr. Automatic for them.
It is surprising, especially after what they went through last year with Brett Maher toward the end of the year. The big thing with Aubrey is that he's not like he's 23 years old. He's an older guy, and he played in the MLS. So one of the things he said was, I was a rookie in the MLS. So I went through the jitters there. And then I was a rookie in the XFL. So I was a rookie there. And now I'm like a veteran in mindset, because he said I didn't handle being a rookie well in soccer, because he was a local kid and those kinds of things. So now he's here with the great Dallas Cowboys being a local kid. So he's a lot calmer and he's mature. And he's like, hey, I'm a rookie per se when it comes to that, my experience level, but mentally I am older and I'm more mature. I can handle this thing. He doesn't get too excited. Cowboys used to have this thing called staying neutral. And that's Brandon Aubrey. He's just neutral. He's just, nothing really affects him too much. He had a kickoff that went out of bounds last week. Special teams coach said it was my fault. So how's your fault? You're not even on the field. He said, well, I moved one of the guys running down the field, the L5, closer to the kicker, and that messed up Aubrey. And so then we said, well, what? And he had a PAT that hit the upright. He said, that will happen. remember, he missed the first point after attempt of his career, and then he hasn't missed anything. Then he's made 19 consecutive field goal attempts, and it's been unbelievable. So the maturity level in him just suits, is just perfect right now. Now, we'll find out about next year, but so far so good for Brandon Aubrey. And he's been healthy. They got a new operation too. They got a new snapper. So the whole thing is new, and he's been fantastic. It's really good to see, but that's one of the areas on this team that the Cowboys are not worried about is kicker. Because last year they were worried about Maher, especially he couldn't even get a PAT right last year, you know.
And that's big because it adds up in terms of close games and so forth. And John Fossil's done a really good job with respect to special teams. And that's where I want to end the conversation, Calvin, because the dynamics of a team, specifically on special teams, changes as you ask guys on offense and defense to take on bigger roles. And I've noticed Kevontae Turpin playing a role more on offense. I mean, he had a rushing score against the Giants. I'll bring in Marquise Bell, who you mentioned. You talk about Wanye Thomas, who had the block field goal against the Giants. I mean, I could sit here and name a bunch of other guys, Jalen Tolbert. My point is, how has that given Fossil a bit of a challenge to maintain the stronghold of special teams, even though I'm assuming he's losing personnel because they're playing more prominent roles in other facets of the team?
Yeah, he's going to lose Jalen Tolbert a little bit more. He's getting more time on offense. He lost Bell. He lost Clark, as you said.
All these guys, yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes Bones Fossil one of the better special teams coordinators in the NFL. Is because he's mixing and matching guys. And when you look at your practice squad, you say, can these guys play special teams? They signed Rashad Evans, who's a former first-round pick, to the practice squad. They put him on special teams. He's a sure tackler. You know, the first period of practice every day is a special teams practice, and everyone gets to look at what you can do. Wanye Thomas, he's played really well. He's a safety. He started the Giants game, you know, because they had a 4-safety package out there, and he was out there. Cowboys trusted these kids. They put a special emphasis on special teams because they're one of the best special teams guys in the league. And you could see that, and look, Rick Gosselin, he's worked for the Morning News, used to have these special teams rankings. So I wonder if the Cowboys will be in the top 5 special teams rankings at the end of the year. Because they've blocked field goals, they've blocked punts. Last week against Philly, they had Micah Parsons trying to block a punt in the fourth quarter of that game. So everyone's involved in this thing, and I think that's a positive for the Cowboys.
And something for the Giants to keep close tabs on, because I think we were exposed to that in week 1 where Micah Parsons was involved on special teams. And all of a sudden it provides a bit of a rude awakening for the guys up front, as if they don't have to deal with enough on the offensive line with respect to tackling the Dallas defense. He is Calvin Watkins. He covers the Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. Calvin, this was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to the game, and I look forward to speaking down the road. Thanks for joining me.
Appreciate you, man. Take care. See you down the line.
You got it. My pleasure.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
That's Calvin Watkins from the Dallas Morning News. Giant fans love a winner. It's why they love Citizens. Named a 2022 Best Bank in the U.S. by The Banker. As the official bank of the Giants and sponsor of the Huddle, Citizens is made ready for fans of Big Blue. Learn more at citizensbank.com. Now let's turn to the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa, with the head coach of the Giants, Brian Daboll.
The Giants take on the Dallas Cowboys. As always, we're joined by the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll. And, Coach, obviously you're going here to Dallas. Tommy DeVito's getting the start for your team. What did you see in DeVito during practice this week, and the kind of growth that you're seeing in this young man who's been thrust into this interesting situation, to say the least?
Yeah, Bob, he's doing everything he can do to go out there and play a good game. He's been good in the meetings. He spent a lot of extra time here. He's had a good week of practice. Again, he doesn't have to do everything. He just has to go out there and perform his job the best he can.
You know, one of the things that I like to talk with fans about is the fact that, you know, he did enough to earn a spot on your team through training camp, right, or at least get a spot on your practice squad. He was given an opportunity, and he kind of ran with it. What were some of the things that caught you and your staff's eye this summer, with the odds always stacked against an undrafted rookie of making a team, to be a part of your Giants team to start with?
Yeah, I think he's improved a lot, you know, from OTAs, where it's kind of tough for any young player, but particularly at that position. And he improved into training camp and did a good job in the preseason. And, every step along the way, he's kind of made continual improvement. So he'll have an opportunity to go out there and play against a very good football team. And, again, he's prepared and done everything he could do to try to go out there and play as good as he can play.
We always talk about fast starts, and people equate that strictly to offense. Like, they got to get off to a fast start. They got to move the ball. But as we saw last week against the Raiders, getting off to a fast start defensively is also important, because I thought that first drive gave that team, with all the turmoil that they had gone through, a little boost. Can you talk about defensive fast starts and how important that is in setting a tone as well?
Yeah, I just say overall team complementary football. So if you defer and you kick it off, or in that case, they deferred and kicked it off to us, going 3 and out, and then punting them down, and them having a good drive, and them going to get a score. Anytime you can get the lead early, usually is a result of team football, whether that's a kicking game, defense, offense, and that's certainly something that we keep working on. Haven't been there yet, particularly I'd say offensively, but to let them go down and to drive and get a touchdown, I think that's that does give teams momentum, and then your ability to answer after that first score is critical.
Coach, I was thinking about this too in the aftermath of the loss. I think one thing that probably people didn't realize externally was there was a lot of positives from your offensive line in this football game as you're starting to get people back and trying to get pieces in place. Now, I know Evan Neal got hurt, but Tyree Phillips has done a very nice job since he's been back. Did you guys as a staff see a similar thing as far as the line? Yeah,
I think our line has really improved throughout the year. Obviously, we've had a bunch of different players in there. Bobby's done a good job with them. We've kind of settled in a little bit. Obviously, Tyree coming back has helped us with Evan's absence, and then getting Andrew back. But, the interior 3 guys with Pugh and Bredesen and John Michael and even Glow when he's in there, those guys do a good job of communicating, and that's where it starts. So I think there's been improvement in that area. It's good to have those guys back. We've had a variety of guys starting at different times throughout the season, so consistency is important.
Talking about the Cowboys here, they're coming off a loss, a tough one against Philadelphia, a chance to win the game. Dak Prescott's been playing lights-out football the last couple of weeks. They don't have the same kind of 1-2 punch running game that we've seen them have in the past, but they're still having success offensively. What do you think the keys are that you're going to have to deal with in this game today to try to at least slow that down?
Sure. Well, it starts up front for every team, and they have a good offensive line. They've gotten some guys back. They play well together. They protect Zach, and Dak does a good job. They protect Dak, and Dak does a good job of distributing the ball. He's got good skilled players. C.D. Lamb is one heck of a receiver. They move him around a lot, motion him, get him in different spots. He does a great job of creating separation. He's a really smart receiver, and I think Ferguson is really an underrated tight end who can do both the run and the pass well. So, you had Gallup, veteran Cooks. Those guys are a talented team, and Dak does a good job. He's done a good job since he's played. He's a heck of a quarterback. He's won a lot of football games. They usually score a lot of points when he's playing quarterback, and definitely a challenge.
Final question, Coach. Last year on Thanksgiving, you guys played in Dallas, and you made the game muddy. And there were some opportunities. There was that famous 4th-and-1 play that wasn't executed. But is that sort of the blueprint when you're going into somebody's building, as talented as the Cowboys is, hey, let's just get this deeper into the game, let's make it muddy, and then late we got to make the plays when they appear? Yeah,
play a clean game. Turnovers will be a big key. They've lost 3 games and all different kind of ways against Arizona, against the 49ers, and last week against the Eagles. You got to play a smart football game when you're playing this team. They got an explosive offense. They got an explosive defense. Obviously with Micah and Lawrence, and those guys are one heck of a tandem in terms of getting to the quarterback. But taking care of the football, making good decisions, not giving them gifts, playing a smart, tough game.
Coach, we appreciate a couple minutes. Best of luck this afternoon.
Thanks, Bob.
A great trio of interviews there. We thank Brian Daboll, Calvin Watkins, and tight end Daniel Bellinger for joining us on the Giants Huddle podcast, presented by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. Enjoy your football weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Giants Huddle podcast.